Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Coaching for Relevance. We are back with Randy Swaim, excited and enjoying our time back with him to talk more about, we have so much. Aviation expert, coach, success coach, mentor, pilot. I can't even. Author, movie star, movie producer. But he's really here to help people in so many different ways. He's a dear friend of the show. He's been with us for a long time and clearly is successful and loves what he does. Welcome back, Randy. How are you, hon?
Thanks. I'm doing good. It's always a pleasure to be with you, Jill. Definitely.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, sweetheart. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, quite a lot. You mentioned a lot of it, but but basically, my career has been in aviation, and I got a chance to fly the one airplane in the Air Force that I really appreciated. I was a instructor Wizzo in the F-4 Phantom, and but I also flew Learjets in a strategic air defense training contractor. So they were actually, we would go out and act like we were the bad guys to all of the strategic air defense folk, units around their country and everything. And our job was to help keep them current and aware and all of that kind of stuff. And so I did that. And then I've been actually training in pilots and teams since about 1993, so about 30 some years ago, kind of thing. And then I've also just passed, training and certifying jet pilots and also other instructors and things like that for the last 25 years here at CAE. So I've been doing that, but as a Marshall Goldsmith certified executive coach and also with NPN Hub at the Institute for Organizational Neuroscience. I'm also a master certified neuroplastician, which is somebody that understands the brain and how it works. And I'm going to bring a little bit of that, not the science of it, but some aligned stuff with it today. But there's I bring all of that to what I do if I'm coaching somebody, if I'm coaching a team, if I'm working with jet pilots, if I'm coaching flight crews, things like that. I bring all of that awareness to pretty much everything that I do today. And so I appreciate it. I know what it's like to have really lived an adventure. That's just some of the stuff that I have, as you know, and glad to be here. And I've been here with Podcast Business News Network for, I think, around the last 2.5 years. And I've been with you a lot, and I appreciate that. I like it. I appreciate our friendship and totally like what we do.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Well, we're excited you're back here to talk more, and I know you're going to share a lot of information today. Let's do it.
Cool. Well, I'll tell you what, let me start out by just doing this and what I thought I would do, and I kind of mentioned this very quickly before we started the recording, that I'll bring an aviation picture of it, but then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring kind of the insight to leading teams in a rapidly changing, unpredictable environment, which is my organizational maneuverability concept that is trademarked for me out of Washington. That basically focuses on not everything is rote academic. Can you and your team be truly successful in situations that just do not fit rote academics kind of thing? And I'm going to sort of bring it to that a little bit. As far as leading your team, but also developing them, and some things that leaders have to be aware of and just incorporate into their vision and their decision making and their awareness. So that's kind of what I thought we would do today.
Great. Thank you so much. Tell us. Let's hear it.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll launch into it. And what I thought I would do on this, and there have been several examples of this throughout my entire flight aviation career. Okay. Nothing has been unethical. Nothing has been borderline dangerous or anything like that, but it's just some awareness that comes into play. And I'll give you just one picture of it. And that is, I know back when we were flying the F4 and stuff, and particularly when you're flying fighters, particularly if you're preparing for or going into actual combat. A lot of times what you're going to be doing back in the day is going in low level. So, because if the higher you are, bigger weapons can shoot you down, kind of thing. And so you would go in low level. And so one of the things that we would typically practice in is going out on, low level routes and basically timing and making sure we can kind of fly it on that and yet come right over to our target and be there so we know when we can drop a bomb or whatever kind of thing. But one thing I will say is that when I was with the 4th TAC Fighter Wing, we one of the little low level areas that we would typically go into was in a little bit of a hilly terrain. And I'll just kind of share this very quickly, but it's interesting because one of the things on it, you would go into it, and typically when you're low level, you typically want to be, no higher than about 500 feet if you can. Be down there to hide behind the mountains, because guess what? If there's weapons on the outside of the mountains, they can't shoot you if the mountain's blocking the way and kind of thing, sort of thing. So just golly gee whiz. But what I will say is this, that there was this one low level route that we had where we went right down a valley, and we were about 500 feet above the ground, and we would go right down a valley. And guess what? You had a row of mountains on this side and a row of mountains on this side. And the challenge with that is, and I'll just kind of share the challenge with it, there was one turn point where you had to make the turn to continue where you're going and everything. There was one turn point down there where you had to make the turn to the new heading and stay, in the valley of it kind of thing. But on this particular place, because you had the two mountains here, one of the things that we all knew that when it came to that turn point, you had to turn at 4 G's pressure and not anything else.
Wow.
And here's why, because as you're coming in, and this is just like an analogous picture that I'm going to bring here in just a minute, but as you're coming in, if you only went to 3 G's or 2 G's, guess what? You'd hit and crash on this mountain over here. If you went to 5 G's, you would go over and crash and impact this mountain over here. So you had to be 4 G's and nothing else until you made that turn and everything. And I'll tell you what, it was always fun. I know what it's like to live a dream and the adventure of all I did. But what I will also say on this, and one other one, and I've shared this on a picture one time, and what I'm going to be focusing on today is a little bit of situational awareness. And really, when you're talking about leaders and leading your teams, this aspect of situational awareness is so critical. And I'll kind of go to that momentarily. But I shared on a show some time back, quite a while back, I think. But there was one time when we were operating with a Navy frigate out in the Atlantic Ocean, and they wanted us down real low. So we were down around, 35, 50 feet above the water. And guess what?
Wow.
A seagull came out of nowhere and took out one engine.
Oh
and
my
I was flying it, and I immediately started to climb away from the ground. And I told the captain, who was actually the non-flying pilot for this particular segment, and I said, check the engines. And he looked up as I'm climbing up away from the water, and he looked at the engines, and he said, yep, engines are still good. So he didn't go down the engines. Good, kind of thing. And we were able to knock it off and fly home. And it turned out that seagull missed going down the engines and taking out one of the engines by probably about 2 inches, kind of thing. And so, because he hit on the top edge of the intake of the engine. But the bottom line is the only reason I bring those two aspects up is this very simple concept. Because so often in today's world, what you have is you have a lot of people that, and you've heard me say this on the show before, Jill, that when you're talking about organizational maneuverability and aspects like that, guess what? There's factors out there that you can't predict. Well, what a lot of people in our society have a tendency to do, and this is a lot of managers out there,
Yeah.
When they see factors come on, there's either one or two things that they can, kind of think in terms of doing. One is blaming it on them and just telling their people, just push through this, kind of thing, and all that kind of stuff. And are there times when you should do that? Yeah, there are. But always? No. There are times when you got to adjust over here to avoid this factor.
Yeah.
And are there times when that's the case? Yes. But here's the point that I'm making to you, and it's really the picture of when we were in that little low level structure in those hills and mountains there. And but what leaders need to understand is it's not just about the rote academics. It's not about, well, this factor's coming on, so just go over there or just push through kind of thing. Now, are there times when you may need to do that? Yes, there are. But is that always the solution? And the short answer
No.
to that is no, it isn't.
No.
It's kind of like that situation where with the G forces on that flight that I mentioned to you. If you only do 3 Gs, you bounce off the mountain and crash. If you do 5 Gs, you bounce off of this mountain and crash. And what leaders need to understand is they need to be able to have clarity on this situation with the vision that we're doing, the vision and what we're trying to accomplish. With this vision, with this factor coming on scene, if all you're doing is thinking of going all the way over there or all the way over there, guess what? You're not getting it done
Yeah.
because there's a whole slew of possibilities inside there. You may have to adapt. And when you talk about adapting your strategy just a little bit, that doesn't mean you go full direction over
Yeah.
here, or it doesn't mean you just push through. Sometimes adjusting to this direction over here by, oh, I don't know, 5 feet or something
Yeah.
like that can be all that's needed to minimize the impact of that factor.
Wow.
And so that's one aspect that when you're talking about a clarity of vision and a clarity of strategic thinking and situational awareness that leaders have to be able to have within what they're doing, because it's not just about turn over here or no, just push through there. No, there's a whole slew of possibilities in between that. And which one do you need to do to get radical success, minimize the risk, minimize the negative impact perhaps, and yet still accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. And that's something that that leaders, when you're talking about a challenging, unpredictable environment, they have to kind of think in terms of that sort of level of adaptability. It's not just either or. It's not just turn over here or it's not just press through. Are there times when the situation is bad enough that you may just have to try to press through? Yep.
Yeah.
Is that every situation? Nope.
No.
And so the leader must have clarity on what is the right aspect to adapt given this situation, this factor that's coming on board. Because here's the thing, if I turn all the way over there, that may cause another factor to come on scene that I didn't expect, kind of thing. But understand on this level of adaptability, what do I have to do for that really to make success happen? And so it's just one aspect on that. And then I'll kind of throw out one other just sort of aspect with that, because that was pretty clear. Just thinking in rote academic situations or just full left or full right, guess what? That doesn't get it there.
Yeah.
That doesn't get it there. And it can also impact what you're doing in such a way that you can't accomplish what you're trying to achieve. And so it's and there's a lot of people out there that almost think that way, and that's unfortunate kind of thing. But the other point I'll throw out to this too, just in the last part of this, is when you're the leader of your team, how are you going to really instill that in your team members? So that if you had a heart attack today, or if you're on vacation and they see a situation like that with what they're doing, they can make the right call and decision and reach success. But not only that, not only can they do that, even when you're not there to tell them
Yeah.
what to do, Can they do that? Yeah.
Yeah.
But if in doing that, you're not only bringing radical results to your team, you're not bringing you're not just bringing the ability to your team, but if you think about it, you're bringing that ability and that potential for success to your organization
Mm-hmm.
because you're developing and building within your team members the ability to make those decisions and to get a sense for on a given situation with given factors coming in what's the real right thing to do right now. And they don't have to overly think about it. They can have a sense of that. What's the risk? What's the direction that I need to adjust
Yeah.
to minimize the impact of that factor, but still get there to success, but also do it in such a way that I'm not increasing the risk by going too far away or whatever on that. And so it's just a little bit of a picture of that. And I gave it from the aviation and the pilot background and stuff because that's a good kind of a mental visual picture of what I'm talking about. And as a leader, when you're talking about those challenging situations, not everything fits academic. And can you make the right decisions? Can you adjust in such a way? Because here's the thing, if you adjust too far or not enough, guess what? It's probably going to cost your team a lot that's negative in order to try to get there. But if your team and you have a clear vision on about this far left or this far in this direction, you know what? We can get there.
Ah.
And you teach people to be able to do that because if you can bring that to you and your team and your strategic vision and your situational and your clear situational awareness, if you can do that and really cause your decision making to be
Then,
wow and
yeah.
right, then guess what? You can bring a lot of value to your company. You can bring a lot. You're developing your team, but also
Wow. Yeah.
you're enhancing yourself because not a lot of people in businesses today kind of think that way. There are
Mm-hmm.
some, and there are some people like me. In fact, I was on my organizational maneuverability show this morning. It's going to be posted on Podcast Business News Network Studio 2 kind of thing,
Awesome.
um, and everything. And he and I were very aligned. The guest actually brought out some good things that were exactly aligned with where I take things and everything. And I was applauding him and everything, but it just very aligned with kind of what we're talking about here. But it was very aligned with what I wanted to bring here. But this thing is, people have to realize that it just doesn't go with rote academic things because what a lot of people today, what a lot of people today have as a habit pattern is to just choose this. And if it doesn't work, just cast blame on things. You know what? You're not getting the job done if you do that. And it's being able to have clarity in the situational awareness so that you know how we need to adjust or adapt for this
Mm-hmm.
to minimize the risk, but also employ the success likelihood of what we're trying to accomplish. And it's not just through rote understanding of this factor, it's situational awareness of this situation we're in here and being able to understand that. But it is sort of interesting. It's a good picture, but when you're talking about your leader and you're talking about making decisions in a challenging environment or an unpredictable situation, guess what? You can't just think either or.
Yeah.
You have to have complete situational awareness of the situation at hand and of the factors involved and be able to make the right decision that's not right just because it goes over here or over here, but you understand why it's right and you
Yeah.
can communicate that. And if you lead your team in such a way that they start developing that awareness within them, guess what? You're making magical things happen for your company, for your organization, and for all that you're doing as a team. So it's just a picture of that. And I like I said, I shared the aviation aspect of it just to kind of give a little bit of a mental picture of what I was talking about. But when you're talking about leading your team in a challenging situation, guess what? That's what you got to be doing. That's what you got to be thinking about, and knowing what the right point of adapting is. What do you need to do right so that you minimize risk, but also, position for success going forward and stuff. And it's just something to think about when you are talking about rapidly changing environments and situations that don't just fit rote academic pictures to it. It's and guess what? That's a lot of our world today. I mean, yeah, there's some science things out there that talk about various things, but when various factors come on, guess what? Those things can kind of tweak and change a little bit as you're going through it. And so it's just something to think about when you're talking about leading your team. And that aviation picture was just one little picture of kind of what you do this. And when you're having to make an adaptation a little bit into your strategy, guess what? Do you understand the absolute right and correct application of it? And are you really doing it? And how do you know? And so it's an aspect of the thinking that leaders have to be aware of, but also, like I said, they have to be aware of how they're going to be developing that in their team. And that doesn't come through just your telling them what to do. That comes from you asking the right questions and having conversations and interaction with them in such a way that they experience and they start to see the truth and the reality of it. And that's just some things to think about when you're trying to truly bring success to your team. But it's just, like I said, it's just a little bit of a simple picture,
Yep.
But it's a little bit different than most people think of today.
Well, amazingly said. Thank you so much. Wow. Thank you, Randy. We still have 2 minutes left before we go. Wrap it up if you don't mind in the fashion that Randy does. And he's so modest, but obviously he's here to help people. No obligation to reach out, but come on. You don't like talking about yourself. I do. Coachingforrelevance.com.
Thank you.
How do you always say, go ahead, tell. If they want to call, they don't say, how do you say it? Go ahead, because you're so modest.
Okay. Well, you could go to my website, and at the bottom of the website, it has my my email and my cell phone. And as Jill knows, if somebody calls me, by the way, if I'm busy, I'm in the simulator or something like that, and I can't answer it, just leave a voicemail. And but I will say this, that I don't make sales calls to you. Now, if somebody calls me and they have a need for some coaching, we'll come up with that. But I just kind of connect with people and leave some value in it. And for me, it's just bringing freedom to potential, and I want to bring freedom to potential in other people. So it's and of course that's my book. And I know the movie, the title is a little bit different, but the Hollywood movie that's and by the way, I don't know if you know this, but last Friday we signed a contract on that. And so the marketing folks at AEMG are out there starting this week marketing it out there. But that's very aligned with that also, talking about my story and everything. Just looking to leave benefit for other people, even after one of these days down the road when I take my last breath, whenever that is. So, so that's what I'm all about.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Randy. You have a fantastic day. Pleasure seeing you, and looking forward to the next time we get to connect, okay? Always a pleasure, and thank you so much. Enjoy the day, sweetheart, and see you soon.
Well, I'll tell you what, I look forward to it. I appreciate you too, Jill. So you have a wonderful rest of the week.
I will, sweetheart. Thank you so much, Randy. Bye-bye.
Hello, I'm Randy Swaim. I'm a Marshall Goldsmith certified executive coach and the founder for Coaching for Relevance. Our vision is to bring freedom to potential in all that is across our path. And one of the things we really want to do, which is aligned with our aviation background, is to help teams and leaders break free of the gravitational forces that are holding them back and their success back, and help them soar to their altitudes. So that's our passion, and that's what we're all about.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, She has split ends.
B. Console her.
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C. Take charge.
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D. Help her find a new boyfriend.
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.